Yeah, so my name's Connor Power. I'm an Arrowman from Tantamus Lodge, which is just south of Boston, Massachusetts. And this year I have the honor of serving as the 2020 Northeast Region Chief for the Order of the Arrow.
How is this position for you? How do you like it? Interesting things about it, fun things you've gotten to do because of this position.
Yeah, so being Region Chief is definitely a very interesting job. It's kind of hands-on, where in the sense that I'll spend most of my weekends up until recent events, I would spend most of my weekends in a uniform at an event, maybe I've been down to the DC area already, as well as up to the Maine area, really all across the region. So it's really been interesting to see what sections and lodges from across the Northeast region are doing to support scouting. But also because of the scope of my position, I get to be involved with things like planning the National Order of the Arrow Conference, executing the National Leadership Seminar, and continuing efforts to support our local lodges and their mission to achieve the purpose of the Order of the Arrow. So it's been really interesting to step up into this new role and see all of the great things that people are doing across the country, as well as to kind of have the opportunity to put my vision for the Order of the Arrow upon our region.
How is the COVID-19 pandemic affecting you through scouts, through life in general?
Sure. So amidst all of the chaos surrounding the COVID-19 epidemic, it's given me a lot of kind of free time on my hands that I can put towards catching up on some scouting work, some homework, and kind of overall just get my life a little bit reorganized. And it's been a little bit tough because, just yesterday I had to go back to my college and pick up all of my belongings and bring them home with pretty short notice because my school actually closed for the rest of the semester today. And because of that, I've also had to shift to taking classes online instead of in person, which has been a little bit difficult. But overall, it's been pretty nice. I'm getting a little bit of time to charge my batteries, dedicate more time to work on Order of the Arrow projects, and kind of reorganize my life in general. But it's been a little bit tough to keep my spirits up, but I'm trying to stay active, continue doing the good work of our order, and make sure that I'm keeping busy.
What advice would you give to new scouts or new Arrowmen who have not yet participated in Order of the Arrow? How would you pitch it to them?
Yeah, so pitching the Order of the Arrow is definitely a really big part of my job. I've been kind of doing it since I was a chapter chief, all the way up until this day, because there's a lot of people that we need to get on board with supporting our program, and obviously it's great to have more people being in the loop and wanting the Order of the Arrow to continue to exist in the coming years. So I know that when I went through my induction, I was a little bit confused, to be totally honest, about everything going on in the ordeal. I didn't really understand why we were doing some of the things that we did. But once we reached the end of the ceremony on that Saturday night back in 2015, and I received my sash that I had worked so hard to earn, it really all came into perspective. I realized that all the hard work that I had put in to join the Order of the Arrow, and just even the fact that my unit had voted for me to be a member of the Order of the Arrow, just their confidence in my ability as a servant leader really gave me the final push to stay involved in scouting at a time when I didn't really know if it was something I wanted to commit my life to. But I can say firsthand that it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Scouting and the Order of the Arrow in particular have had an immense impact on my life, and I honestly don't know where I would be without them.
What would you recommend for a chapter or a lodge that is not very active? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so when I served as a lodge chief, it was actually after my lodge had recently merged with a neighboring lodge. And you can imagine that trying to combine two lodges who have different sets of practices, traditions, it was a little bit difficult. And for the first month or so, everybody was pretty excited about merging the lodge and forming a whole new part of scouting. But after a while, we kind of realized that some of us had some pretty strong opinions and were disagreeing on a lot of things. So I totally understand where people are coming from in the sense that they're active or that they're not active or that they don't really know where to go next. What I will say is that it's really important to sit down and take the time to analyze everything that your lodge is doing, try to come up with an action plan on what you could do better. But of course, you really want to think about why you're doing the actions that you're doing. The whole point of the Order of the Arrow is to serve scouting through committing or through performing cheerful service. So we really need to just take a step back and think about, are we actually supporting the mission of the Order of the Arrow? are we fulfilling the purpose of our organization? And if you're not, for whatever reason, I would encourage you to take a look at what you're doing, then go back to the drawing board, come up with some new plans, and figure out what you could do to better serve scouting.
So I know you may have already gone into this a bit with your discussion about how the ordeal brought a lot of things into perspective for you, but how did you get more involved in the Order of the Arrow?
So after I did my ordeal in 2015, I actually didn't go to an OA event for the first, I think, 4 or 5 months of my time being in the OA. And there were a few events that had happened. I believe there was another ordeal and maybe a lodge leadership development program, but I just simply didn't really have the drive to stay involved in the OA after my ordeal. I didn't really see why I would want to do it. And even though I had kind of gained some insight on why I did the work to earn my sash, I didn't know what to do next. Thankfully, a couple months later, I was at a camporee, and a friend of my scoutmaster sat down with me, and he had just returned from the 2015 National Order of the Arrow Conference only a couple weeks or a couple months earlier. And after talking to me for about 2 hours about all the fun stuff that he did at NOAC, I figured, you know what, I'll give this OA stuff a try. So I ended up going to a fellowship weekend a month later, completely loved it. It convinced me to sign up for my section's conclave. And since then, I've probably been at a OA event every month or so since then. So I got involved because it seemed to me like there was a lot of fun things to do, as well as things that you could do to better yourself, like attending training courses, making new friends, things like that.
What would you say that your favorite Order of the Arrow sponsored event has been?
Oh, this is a really easy question. It was definitely the 2018 National Order of the Arrow Conference. It was my first NOAC that I'd ever been to, and I had the honor of serving on a communication staff. And I can vividly remember that the second I stepped into the opening show that was at the Indiana University Stadium, just looking out at the crowd of literally thousands of Arrowmen all in the same place with the same things in mind, I just thought it was completely amazing to be surrounded by that many of my brothers and people who I even had the pleasure of calling my brothers. I'd never been in a room with 8,000 people who all shared the same ideas. But yeah, after that first night, I realized there are this many people who care about the Order of the Arrow, and we're all in one place. And I knew that it would just be a really great week. And I ended up spending the week meeting new people from across the country, helping everyone stay in the loop by managing the NOAC newsletter, and just overall having a great time with all of the activities there.
So what would you say stands out more about the Order of the Arrow than other programs that kids may be doing, like marching band, orchestra, Plain Scouts in general, Venture, Sea Scouts? How does the OA stand out?
So I think that one of the best things about the Order of the Arrow is that it really has the power to take any person, put it through the program, and they'll come out a better person in some way on the other side. I think that one of the best things about scouting in general, not even necessarily the Order of the Arrow, is that wherever you look, you'll find a home for you. I know that when I was in probably 8th grade and I was looking at all the merit badges that I had to earn to earn the Eagle Scout rank, I thought, wow, they really have a merit badge for everything, from I think plumbing to chess to orienteering to sports. There's really something for everybody. So that just goes to show how amazing scouting is at being inclusive of everybody. But the reason that I picked the Order of the Arrow specifically over sports, marching band, or other activities was that I just truly felt like I belonged in the Order of the Arrow more than I had felt in any other capacity. In high school, I was on my school's rowing team for, I think, the first 2 years of high school, but I never felt like I really got anything out of it. I looked at some of the older kids on the team, like the seniors, who would get athletic scholarships and compete in massive races, and I just never got to have some of those opportunities. But then a couple months later, I believe after a big race in Crew, I went to the National Leadership Seminar in the Order of the Arrow, and I realized that there is so much more out there that could just be provided by the OA, that I'm not going to get the experience of serving as a leader from a rowing team or from anything else. And I just figured out that the immense power that the Order of the Arrow has to unify people under the same banner was just truly awe-inspiring. Being in a group of common-minded people who all care about scouting was definitely the right move for me, because well, I've already mentioned this, but I can personally attest to the power that the order and that scouting as a whole has to develop and improve people's lives, because I wouldn't be the person that I am today without the Order of the Arrow.
What are some events, not just in the OA, but in scouting, that you would suggest that people go to and give a try?
Well, of course, and this is another shameless plug. My immediate go-to for this would be the National Order of the Arrow Conference. I think that it has a little something for everybody. There are even like swimming competitions. There's a Spartan race. There's innovative training. So there's just so much that you can do at NOAC. So that's my go-to. But like I mentioned, scouting really does have something for everybody. There are also the high adventure bases, which are all amazing. I've been to Philmont personally, and I went in 2016, but I still haven't forgotten about the amazing experience that I had there. As well, there are, I know that this summer there's an upcoming Venturing Fest at the Summit Bechtel Reserve. Next year, there's going to be the 2021 National Jamboree. There's just a myriad of opportunities that you can either physically go to through these events, or that you could just kind of do back home. Like serving as an Order of the Arrow troop representative is also a really great experience that I had the honor of doing. For my first couple months of being in the OA, my scoutmaster encouraged me to do it just to make sure that everybody was connected to the OA, that they all had access to information about upcoming OA events. And it was definitely helpful for me to kind of take the next step in my leadership before I ended up becoming SPL. So yeah, I'd say take a look at the national events calendar, think about NOAC, but there's also Venturing Fest, National Jamboree, high adventure bases. But of course, it doesn't even stop there. I wish that I could say I knew everything cool about scouting, but one of the best things about our organization is that it just has so much that you can do that I can't really remember it all. So talk to your lodge chief, or to maybe your chapter chief, your scoutmaster, your unit leader. I'm sure that they all have a couple more amazing ideas that you could do to engage with scouting, but those are some of my ideas.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wyatt. I appreciate the opportunity.